Have you ever felt buried under the weight of life's challenges? The audiobook Stay Calm, Think Smart, The Art of Critical Thinking in Difficult Situations is designed to be your roadmap for mastering critical thinking while keeping your composure, no matter what is happening around you. It will show you how to make wiser choices, untangle complicated problems, and handle high-pressure moments with confidence and clarity. Instead of letting stress cloud your judgment or allowing missed chances to hold you back, you'll learn how to approach difficulties differently and unlock more of your potential in both your personal and professional life. Before we dive in, you're invited to download a free companion bundle that includes the ebook version of this audiobook and a concise executive summary of all the chapters with their key insights. Research shows that engaging with the same material in multiple formats significantly strengthens learning and memory. Click the first link in the description to claim your free bundle and get the most from this program. It's available at no cost for now, but that won't last forever, so be sure to grab it while you can. Chapter 1, Starting Smart. We live in a world of non-stop change and growing complexity. In this environment, the ability to think critically and stay calm when things get tough is more valuable than ever. Imagine facing a major decision at work, a personal crisis, or a sudden problem, and doing so with steady confidence and crystal-clear focus. That picture is not a fantasy, it reflects a skill set you can purposely build and refine over time. Welcome to Stay Calm, Think Smart, The Art of Critical Thinking in Difficult Situations. As you begin this journey, imagine yourself standing at the bottom of a mountain. The summit represents your goal, becoming someone who can stay composed and think sharply, even when life gets messy. The climb may look intimidating, but with each step you'll gain new tools and perspectives that change how you respond to challenges. This book is your trail guide. Throughout these chapters, you'll explore a powerful blend of mindfulness practices and critical thinking methods. When these two approaches work together, they form a mental toolkit that helps you remain steady under pressure and make thoughtful decisions, even in the hardest situations. Why is this combination so effective? Picture your mind as a finely tuned instrument. When it is overloaded by worry, tension, or emotional turmoil, it can no longer perform at its best. By deliberately cultivating calm, you create the ideal inner conditions for your analytical abilities to shine. It's like wiping the fog from a camera lens so the picture in front of you becomes sharp and detailed. As you move through this book, you'll discover that learning to stay calm and think critically is both demanding and deeply rewarding. In this opening chapter, we'll build the foundation for your transformation. We'll look at what you can expect to gain, the long-term benefits of this practice, and the main steps that make up the process. Let's start with what you can realistically achieve the first time you work through this material. To begin with, you'll develop a solid understanding of what calmness and critical thinking actually are. You'll learn the core principles behind each concept and see how they interact to strengthen your decision-making. You'll become more aware of the signs of stress and emotional reactivity in yourself and start using simple strategies to regain your balance in challenging moments. Sometimes that might mean pausing to take a few slow, steady breaths before replying to a heated email, or giving yourself a brief moment to consider different perspectives when faced with a complicated problem. These small actions are the first building blocks of a calmer, more deliberate way of thinking. You'll also start weaving calmness directly into your decision-making process. This doesn't mean becoming detached or emotionless. Instead, it's about creating enough mental space to examine your thoughts and feelings from a step back, rather than being swept away by them. You'll begin to notice how your emotional state shapes your thinking and practice ways to keep a balanced perspective, even when the stakes feel high. Over time, the true power of these skills becomes much more visible. With steady practice and refinement, you'll experience greater clarity and confidence when making decisions. Problems that once felt overwhelming will start to look like structured challenges you can analyze and solve step by step. Your ability to move through tough situations with calm intelligence will influence every part of your life. You might discover that workplace conflicts are easier to handle, that you can negotiate important agreements more skillfully, or that you simply feel more at ease amidst the everyday demands of modern life. In the long run, mastering calm, critical thinking can lead to meaningful personal and professional growth. As your decisions improve and you handle obstacles more effectively, you're likely to see progress in your career, your relationships, and your overall sense of satisfaction. The ripple effects can be truly transformative, opening doors you may never have expected. So what does this journey actually involve, and which steps matter most? At its core, the process rests on two main pillars: understanding how critical thinking works and learning practical mindfulness tools that foster calmness. Critical thinking is more than pure logic. It is a structured way of analyzing information, questioning assumptions, and making well-reasoned choices. You'll learn how mental shortcuts and biases can blur your judgment and discover strategies to evaluate evidence more objectively. Techniques such as asking why several times to reach root causes, or using decision matrices to compare complex options, are examples of tools you'll encounter. Equally important is learning how to cultivate calm through simple, realistic mindfulness practices. You don't need to become a meditation expert. Instead, you'll focus on down-to-earth skills you can use in real situations to steady your mind and emotions. You'll experiment with breathing exercises, body scan practices, and other quick methods that help you rencontre when stress starts to spike. The steps in this program are arranged in a deliberate sequence so they reinforce one another and expand your capabilities. By first building a base of calm, you create the mental room required for clear, effective critical thinking. As your analytical skills improve, you'll find it easier in turn to stay composed in difficult moments, which strengthens your calm even more. This creates a positive feedback loop of personal growth. It is this synergy between calmness and critical thinking that makes the approach in this audiobook stand out from many other self-improvement methods. It's not about simply thinking in a more logical way or just trying to feel more relaxed. It's about merging these strengths so you become more effective, resilient, and confident as a whole person. By establishing a strong foundation in both areas, you'll be prepared to handle even the most complex situations life sends your way, whether that's a high-stakes business decision, a personal crisis, or simply trying to stay centered in a world that often feels chaotic. All of the ideas you have encountered so far lay the groundwork for sharper thinking and more deliberate choices. By practicing these fundamentals, you are already preparing your mind for clearer judgment and more effective action. Remember the saying that a journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step. By opening this program and choosing to work through it, you've already taken that first, essential step. The road to becoming genuinely calm and strategic in your thinking now stretches out ahead of you, filled with challenges to tackle and chances to grow. Before we move on, take a moment to support the ongoing learning journey. Make sure you are subscribed to Grow to the Top and that you've turned on notifications so you don't miss new content on self-development and mental mastery. If you find this material useful, give the video a like and share it with friends or colleagues who could benefit as well. Your engagement really helps the channel. Chapter 2, The Calm Mindset. Picture yourself standing in the center of a storm. Winds are raging, clouds are swirling, and everything around you appears chaotic. Yet right where you are, there is stillness and quiet. This image captures the heart of what we will explore in this chapter, the calm mindset. It is a mental state that lets you move through life's rough waters with grace and clarity, even when the waves of stress and demand are crashing around you. But what exactly do we mean by a calm mindset, and why is it so important for thinking clearly in tough situations? As we unpack this idea, you'll see that it goes far beyond simply feeling relaxed. It is a disciplined way of relating to your emotions and thoughts so that they support, rather than sabotage, your ability to reason. At its core, a calm mindset is about emotional steadiness. It is the capacity to keep your balance and think coherently even when life puts you under pressure. This kind of inner stability does not appear on its own, it is something you can learn and refine. Think for a moment about how you usually respond when something stressful happens. Does your heart start pounding? Does your mind spin with worry, anger, or worst-case scenarios? These responses are completely human, but they can seriously limit your ability to analyze a situation and choose a wise course of action. This is where cultivating calm becomes so powerful. When you are able to maintain a sense of inner quiet even while the outside world feels noisy or intense, you create the ideal conditions for clear thought. It is like turning down the volume on a loud radio, so that you can finally hear the important conversation happening in front of you. Calm doesn't remove all problems, but it makes it possible to see them more accurately. The benefits of a calm mindset stretch well beyond simply feeling less tense. When your emotions are more stable, you can examine situations more objectively, weigh different viewpoints carefully, and base your choices on reason rather than impulse. This steadiness becomes the foundation on which strong critical thinking is built. Developing this mindset starts with awareness. Begin by noticing the physical and mental signals that show up when you are under pressure: a tight jaw, shallow breathing, a knot in your stomach, a racing stream of thoughts. Instead of judging yourself for these reactions, simply recognize them as signs that your nervous system has shifted into a heightened state. This awareness alone creates a small gap between the stimulus and your response, a space in which you can choose a different way to act. One of the most effective ways to expand that space is through mindfulness. Mindfulness is not a mysterious or mystical skill. It is simply the practice of paying close attention to the present moment, on purpose and without harsh judgment. By observing your thoughts, feelings, and bodily sensations as they arise, you begin to see them as passing events rather than absolute truths that must be obeyed. For example, you might notice the thought, "I'm going to mess this up," arise just before an important conversation or presentation. Instead of automatically believing and reacting to that thought, you can note it, "There's the fear again," and return your attention to what you are actually doing. This slight shift reduces the thought's power and allows your more rational mind to stay engaged. Simple mindfulness practices such as breathing awareness or a brief body scan can gradually train your brain to remain steadier when stress levels increase. Over time, you may find that the gap between trigger and reaction grows wider, giving you more room to respond thoughtfully rather than react impulsively. But mindfulness is only one part of building a calm mindset. Another key element is deliberate mental training. Just as athletes use drills to prepare for competition, you can use specific exercises to strengthen your ability to stay composed. One useful method is visualization. You might imagine yourself handling a difficult conversation with patience and clarity or dealing with a sudden setback while remaining grounded. By rehearsing these scenarios in your mind, you are building a blueprint for how you want to respond when real challenges appear. Cognitive reframing is another powerful tool. This means consciously shifting the way you interpret a situation. Instead of thinking, "This is a disaster and I can't cope," you might tell yourself, "This is tough, but it's also a chance to learn and show what I'm capable of." The facts remain the same, but the meaning you give them changes, and with it, your emotional reaction becomes more manageable. Self-compassion also plays a crucial role in emotional stability. Harsh self-criticism, constantly telling yourself you are not good enough or that you always fail, creates enormous internal stress. When you practice speaking to yourself with kindness and Understanding, especially when you make mistakes, you reduce this unnecessary pressure. Treating yourself as you would a close friend builds a steadier emotional base from which to face difficulty. Of course, your new skills will eventually be tested. There will be moments when deadlines pile up, conversations become heated, or unexpected problems knock you off balance. These are the situations that reveal how much progress you have truly made. You may not respond perfectly every time, and that's normal. What matters is that you notice what happened, learn from it, and recommit to your practice. To support this growth, it helps to adopt small, practical habits you can use throughout the day. You might build a pause ritual. Into challenging situations, take one deep breath, relax your shoulders, and silently ask yourself, what is the most helpful way to respond right now? Another micro-practice is to label your feelings in simple terms: angry, worried, tense, which can reduce their intensity and bring the thinking parts of the brain back online. Developing a calm mindset also calls for regular, intentional practice, not just occasional effort. One of the simplest and most effective habits is daily mindfulness meditation. This doesn't need to be long or complicated. Even 5 minutes a day of focused attention can gradually reshape how your mind operates. To begin, choose a quiet space where you will not be disturbed. Sit in a comfortable position and rest your attention on your breathing. Notice the sensation of air moving in and out. When your mind wanders, gently bring your focus back to the breath without scolding yourself. Each time you return your attention, you are exercising your ability to redirect your mind. In addition to meditation, simple breathing techniques can provide instant calm when you need it most. One well-known method is the 4-7-8 breath. Breathe in quietly through your nose while counting to 4, hold the breath for a count of 7, and then exhale slowly through your mouth for a count of 8. Repeating this cycle a few times can slow your heart rate, relax your body, and signal to your nervous system that it is safe to settle down. As these practices become part of your life, you may start to notice real changes. Situations that once triggered immediate panic or anger might still be uncomfortable, but they feel more manageable. You regain control of your reactions more quickly and anxiety becomes less overwhelming. With continued effort, the advantages grow even larger. Your concentration improves, and decisions become easier to make because your mind is no longer clouded by constant emotional turmoil. The clarity that comes from emotional steadiness allows you to evaluate information more objectively and choose responses based on thoughtful analysis rather than reflexive emotion. For those who truly commit to cultivating a calm mindset, the long-term reward is a deep sense of inner mastery. You cannot control everything that happens around you, but you become much more skilled at steering how you respond. That mastery creates the perfect platform for the advanced critical thinking tools you'll encounter in the chapters ahead. As your ability to stay steady grows, you begin to notice another important effect: emotional stability helps you look at situations more objectively and make choices based on reason instead of raw impulse. For people who truly commit to cultivating this calm way of being, the long-term result is a kind of mastery of emotional regulation. This does not mean you will never feel stressed, worried, or upset again. Those reactions are part of being human. What it does mean is that you build the tools to work with your emotions instead of being dominated by them, even when life feels intense. Of course, the path toward a calm mindset is not always smooth. You will meet obstacles, and it is useful to expect them. 1. Common challenge is simply staying consistent. Daily life fills up quickly, and it becomes easy to skip your mindfulness practice or drop the small habits that keep you centered. Another difficulty is impatience. You may hope for rapid transformation and feel disappointed when old reactions still appear. Some people even start to doubt whether these methods work at all. These hurdles are normal. The key is to treat your practice the same way you would treat physical training. Missing one session at the gym does not erase all your progress, and the same is true here. When you notice that you have fallen out of your routine, you do not need to criticize yourself. You simply begin again. Calm is built through many small returns, not through perfection. It can help to design your environment so that it supports your intentions. You might set a reminder on your phone for a short breathing break, leave a note on your desk with a grounding question like, "How do I want to respond right now?" or link your mindfulness practice to something you already do every day, such as your morning coffee or your commute. These simple cues make it more likely that you will remember to pause and reset. Community also makes a difference. Sharing your goals with a friend, a colleague, or an online group can give you encouragement on days when your motivation dips. Knowing that others are working on the same skills reminds you that growth is a process, not a straight line. You can learn from their experiences, celebrate your small wins together, and feel less alone when you struggle. Each time you apply these ideas in real life, you strengthen your calm mindset. Every moment when you notice tension rising and choose to take a breath before reacting is a small victory. Every time you speak to yourself with kindness instead of harsh judgment, you add another layer of stability. Over months and years, these seemingly minor moments add up to a profound shift in how you move through the world. By now, you have seen that a calm mindset is not just a pleasant state, it is a practical foundation for better decisions. Emotional steadiness gives your thinking room to operate clearly. With that foundation in place, we are ready to look more closely at the other pillar of this program, critical thinking itself. Chapter 3, Thinking Clearly. Critical thinking is a phrase you have probably heard many times. But what does it really mean in practice? At its simplest, critical thinking is the skill of examining information carefully before you accept it or act on it. Instead of reacting automatically, you step back, ask questions, and look for solid reasons behind what you are hearing, seeing, or feeling. This does not mean being negative, suspicious of everything, or constantly trying to prove people wrong. The goal of critical thinking is not to attack, but to understand. It is about getting as close as you can to what is actually true, so that your decisions are based on reality rather than on guesswork, fear, or habit. We live in a time when this skill is more important than ever. Every day you are surrounded by messages competing for your attention: news reports, social media posts, advertisements, opinions from coworkers, advice from friends, and your own inner commentary. Many of these messages are emotional, one-sided, or incomplete. Without a clear thinking process, it is easy to be pulled in different directions, to feel confused, or to act on information that later turns out to be misleading. Critical thinking acts like a filter. It helps you sort through the noise and focus on what truly matters. When you use it, you start to ask simple but powerful questions. What exactly is being claimed? What evidence is offered to support that claim? Is the speaker stating a fact, expressing an opinion, or mixing the two together? Are there other explanations that could also fit what I am seeing? A key part of this process is learning to separate facts from interpretations. A fact is something that can be checked and shown to be accurate or inaccurate, like, the meeting started at 9 o'clock, or, sales increased by 10% last quarter. An interpretation is the meaning someone attaches to those facts, such as, the team does not respect my time, or, the market loves our new product. Facts and interpretations are both important, but they are not the same. When you confuse them, your thinking becomes cloudy. Another important idea is that your brain uses two general modes of thinking. One mode is fast, automatic, and emotional. It helps you react quickly in familiar situations and can be very useful in emergencies. The other mode is slower, more deliberate, and more analytical. Critical thinking mainly lives in this second mode. It takes a little more effort and time, but it allows you to spot errors, weigh options, and see the bigger picture. You can probably recall moments when each mode took the lead. Maybe you once reacted instantly to a message that felt insulting and sent a reply you later regretted. That was the fast, reactive mode. In charge. At other times, you may have stepped away from a situation, thought things through, and then responded with a calm, well-considered answer. That was the slower, reflective mode at work. The aim is not to get rid of your quick reactions, they are useful and often necessary. Instead, critical thinking invites you to notice when a situation is important enough to slow down. When the stakes are high, when emotions are intense, or when the information is complex, it is wise to pause and let your slower mode of thinking take the lead. One practical way to do this is to build a simple internal habit. When you encounter a strong claim or a stressful situation, silently say to yourself, pause and check. This short phrase reminds you to take a breath, look at the facts, and ask at least one clarifying question before you act. Over time, this habit can save you from many impulsive decisions. Critical thinking also involves being aware of your own blind spots. All of us carry assumptions, biases, and preferred stories about how the world works. These mental shortcuts help us process information quickly, but they can also lead us to ignore evidence or dismiss viewpoints that do not match what we already believe. When you practice critical thinking, you start to question those internal patterns. You might ask, am I reacting this way because of the facts in front of me, or because it fits the story I already like? You do not need to do this perfectly. Even noticing that you have assumptions is a powerful step. It opens the door to new perspectives and more accurate judgments. Over time, you become less rigid and more curious. Instead of clinging to being right, you become more interested in understanding what is true and what is helpful. In everyday life, critical thinking shows up in small, practical ways. You might read a headline and choose to open the full article before forming an opinion. You might hear a rumor at work and decide to verify it with a reliable source. You might feel a strong emotion in a conversation and ask one extra question to clarify what the other person meant before you respond. These simple actions do not take much time, but they dramatically improve the quality of your decisions. They help you avoid unnecessary conflicts, reduce misunderstandings, and protect you from being swept up in other people's agendas. As we continue in the next section, we will look more closely at how information and arguments are structured. You will learn ways to examine the claims people make, recognize common errors in reasoning, and build stronger arguments of your own. For now, remember this: staying calm gives you the space to think, and critical thinking shows you how to use that space wisely. When you begin to pay attention to how people present ideas, you notice that most messages follow a loose structure. There is usually a main point, the conclusion, and a series of reasons or examples that are offered in support of that point. Critical thinking helps you see this structure clearly so you can decide whether the message deserves your trust. Start by asking, what is the main claim here? Imagine listening to a coworker, a podcast host, or a news commentator. Behind all the details and side remarks, there is usually one central idea they want you to accept. Maybe it is, this project is too risky, or we should invest in this new opportunity, or this person cannot be trusted. When you identify that main claim, everything else in the message becomes easier to evaluate. Next, look at the reasons that are given to support the claim. Are they concrete and specific, or are they vague and emotional? Do they use real facts, numbers, and examples, or do they lean mostly on dramatic language? A strong argument will usually offer reasons that you could check if you wanted to. A weaker argument depends more on how it makes you feel than on what it can actually prove. Then, consider whether the reasons really lead to the conclusion. Sometimes people present true statements that do not actually support the point they are trying to make. For example, a company might say, "We have been in business for 30 years, and then jump to the claim, therefore, our new product is the best on the market." The first statement may be true, but it does not automatically prove the second. Longevity is not the same as quality. Critical thinking asks you to notice this gap. It is also useful to look for what might be missing. Are you only hearing one side of the story? Are there important facts or alternative explanations that have been left out? Sometimes what is not said can be just as important as what is said. When you ask yourself, what else would I need to know to feel confident about this, you are already using critical thinking in a powerful way. As you evaluate information, you will frequently run into common patterns of faulty reasoning, often called logical fallacies. These are mistakes in thinking that can make an argument seem convincing on the surface while being weak underneath. Learning to recognize them is like learning to see hidden cracks in a wall. One example is the ad hominem fallacy. Instead of challenging an idea, a person attacks the character of the person who presented it. For instance, you can't trust her argument about health, she doesn't even exercise. Even if it is true that she does not exercise, that fact alone does not prove her argument is wrong. Critical thinking reminds you to focus on the message, not just the messenger. Another common fallacy is the straw man. This happens when someone takes another person's position, exaggerates it, or twists it into a simpler, more extreme version, and then argues against that distorted version. Imagine you say, "I think we should be careful about how much time kids spend on screens," and someone replies, "So you want to ban all technology and go back to the Stone Age?" They are not responding to what you actually said. They have built a straw figure of your idea and knocked that down instead. There is also the false dilemma, where a situation is presented as having only two choices when, in reality, many options exist. Phrases like, "You're either with us or against us," or "We must do this," or "We have no hope at all," push you toward extreme positions and ignore The nuance is in between. Critical thinking invites you to ask, are these really the only possibilities? What other paths might there be? The slippery slope fallacy is another familiar pattern. It suggests that one small step will automatically lead to a chain of disastrous events, without solid evidence for that chain. For example, if we allow flexible work hours, soon no one will ever show up on time. Productivity will collapse, and the whole company will fail. While it is wise to consider consequences, a claim like this needs real support, not just fear. You may also encounter the appeal to popularity, sometimes called the bandwagon fallacy. This is the idea that something must be true or good simply because many people seem to believe it or do it. Everyone is buying this product, so it must be the best, or most people I know think this way, so it has to be right. Popularity can be interesting, but it is not the same as truth. Recognizing these patterns does not mean you suddenly become a harsh critic of every conversation. Instead, it gives you quiet tools you can use in the background of your mind. You can listen to a message. Notice when a fallacy appears, and then decide for yourself how much weight to give that message. It is like having a mental quality check system that runs automatically. As you sharpen these skills, remember that critical thinking is also about how you present your own ideas. When you share an opinion, you can practice grounding it in clear reasons and honest evidence. Rather than saying, "This will never work," you might say, "I am concerned about this plan because the budget numbers do not match our past results, and here is why." This kind of explanation is not only more respectful to others, it also makes you more persuasive. It is equally important to stay open to being corrected. Critical thinking is not a shield you use to protect your ego, it is a set of tools that help you get closer to the truth. If someone shows you new information that challenges your view, you have an opportunity to update your understanding. Saying, "You're right, I hadn't considered that," is not a sign of weakness, it is a sign that you care more about learning than about always winning. So how do calmness and critical thinking fit together in real life? Consider a stressful scenario. A project at work is behind schedule. Tension is rising, and a heated meeting is about to begin. Without the skills you are developing, you might walk into that room already angry or defensive. You might speak without thinking, blame others, or agree to a rushed decision just to end the discomfort. Now imagine the same situation with a calm mindset and clear thinking in place. Before the meeting, you take a few slow breaths and remind yourself to stay grounded. As people start talking, you listen for the main claims and the reasons behind them. When you hear an exaggerated prediction or a personal attack, you notice it as a fallacy instead of letting it push you into an emotional reaction. You ask clarifying questions, suggest concrete options, and focus the conversation on facts and realistic solutions. The external circumstances may be just as challenging in both versions of this story, but your inner experience is completely different. In the second scenario, you are not at the mercy of the storm. You are using your calm and your critical thinking together to navigate it. These skills matter just as much in your personal life. Think about a disagreement with a friend or family member. When emotions run high, it is easy to interpret everything through a lens of hurt or frustration. You may jump to conclusions about their intentions or say things you do not truly mean. But when you bring calm awareness and clear thinking into the situation, you can pause, check the facts, and ask what they really meant before reacting. This often prevents small misunderstandings from turning into larger conflicts. With practice, you will find that staying calm and thinking clearly starts to feel more natural. It will not happen overnight, and you will still have moments when old habits take over. That is okay. Each time you notice what happened and gently redirect yourself, you strengthen the new patterns. In the upcoming chapters, we will build on this foundation by looking at specific tools for analyzing information in detail, making structured decisions, and solving problems step by step. You will see how to use questions, diagrams, and simple frameworks to break complex issues into manageable pieces. For now, remember that every time you slow down, ask a thoughtful question, and look for real evidence, you are practicing the art of critical thinking in difficult situations. As you become more comfortable spotting weak arguments and hidden assumptions, you are ready to use critical thinking in a more active way, to solve problems and make decisions on purpose, rather than by accident. This is where clear thinking becomes a practical tool you can use every day, not just an abstract idea. Chapter 4, Making Better Decisions. Every day, you make choices. Some of them seem small: what to eat, how to spend the next hour, whether to answer a message now or later. Others feel much bigger: changing jobs, ending or beginning a relationship, moving to a new place, taking on a major project. Even if you do not always notice it, these decisions gradually shape the direction of your life. When you are under stress, it is easy to let decisions just happen. You react to the loudest demand, the strongest emotion, or the most urgent deadline. You might chase instant relief instead of long-term benefit, or avoid making any choice at all because it feels overwhelming. Critical thinking offers a different path. It invites you to step back and ask, how can I approach this decision with clarity and intention? The first step is to define the decision you are actually facing. That might sound obvious, but many people skip it. They get lost in details, emotions, or side issues and never say clearly what choice they are trying to make. You can start by putting it into a simple sentence: I need to decide whether to, or the core question here is. When you can state the decision in plain language, you have already brought more order to the situation. Next, clarify your goal. Ask yourself, what am I really trying to achieve with this decision? Sometimes your deeper aim is not the same as your first impulse. For example, you might think, I want to win this argument, but if you look more closely, your real goal is, I want a fair solution that keeps this relationship strong. When you know what truly matters to you, you can judge your options more wisely. Once the decision and the goal are clear, it is time to gather relevant information. This does not mean searching endlessly until you feel totally certain that day will never come. It means collecting enough solid facts, perspectives, and experiences to see the situation realistically. You might look at data, talk to people who have faced similar choices, or write down what you already know for sure versus what you are only assuming. As you collect information, remember that not all data is equally useful. Critical thinking helps you ask, which pieces of information directly affect this decision, and which are just noise. You do not need to know everything, you need to know what is relevant. This focus keeps you from drowning in details. The next step is to identify your options. Often, we limit ourselves to just two: do it or don't do it, stay or go, say yes or say no. In reality, most situations offer more possibilities. You can brainstorm alternatives, even ones that seem imperfect at first. Could you try a small experiment before making a big change? Could you negotiate terms instead of simply accepting or rejecting an offer? Could you adjust the timing, scale, or conditions of your idea? At this stage, it is helpful to separate option generation from option judgment. First, list possibilities without immediately deciding whether they are good or bad. Then, once you have a range of choices, you can begin to evaluate them. One classic tool for evaluation is the simple pros and cons list. For each option, you write down potential benefits and potential downsides. This makes your thinking visible on the page and often reveals patterns you would miss if everything stayed in your head. You might notice that one choice has many small advantages but one serious risk, while another has fewer benefits but is far safer. You can also look at your options through the lens of time. Ask yourself, what are the short-term effects of this decision? What about the long-term effects? Some choices feel good immediately, but create problems later. Others are uncomfortable now but open the door to greater freedom, health, or success in the future. Critical thinking helps you resist the pull of short-term comfort when it conflicts with your deeper goals. Another useful concept is opportunity cost. Whenever you choose one option, you give up others. For example, if you spend your weekend on one project, you cannot spend the same time on rest, family, learning, or another goal. Asking, if I say yes to this, what am I saying no to, brings hidden trade-offs into the light. For more complex decisions, you might use a simple decision matrix. You list your options along one side and your main criteria along the other, things like cost, time, impact, risk, or alignment with your values. Then you give each option a rough score on each criterion. The goal is not mathematical perfection, but a clearer view of how your choices stack up when you look at them side by side. Throughout this process, your calm mindset and your critical thinking work together. When you feel tension rising or your mind starting to spin, you can use the same grounding techniques you learned earlier: slow breathing, a brief pause, or a quick body scan. This helps keep your emotional temperature low enough that your thinking can stay sharp. Of course, even with all these tools, some decisions remain uncertain. You may face situations where the information is incomplete, the outcomes are unpredictable, or every option carries risk. In such cases, it can be helpful to think in terms of best guess rather than perfect answer. One approach is scenario planning. For each option, you imagine a best-case outcome, a worst-case outcome, and a most likely outcome. You do not need detailed predictions, you simply sketch the possibilities. Then you ask, can I live with the worst-case scenario? Is the most likely scenario acceptable? Is the potential best-case outcome worth the risk? This kind of thinking allows you to move forward responsibly, even when you cannot know exactly what will happen. Another helpful question is, how reversible is this decision? Some choices are hard or impossible to undo, like signing a long-term contract or moving to another country. Others are more flexible, you can test them, adjust them, or step back if they do not work out. When a choice is reversible, you often do not need as much analysis before you try it. A small, low-risk experiment can teach you more than weeks of thinking. No matter how carefully you decide, not every outcome will be what you hoped for. That is part of life. The good news is that each result, good or bad, can become a source of learning. After an important decision, you can look back and ask, what did I do well in my process? What did I overlook? Were there signs I ignored? What will I do differently next time? This kind of reflection turns experience into wisdom. Over time, as you make more conscious decisions and review the results, you start to trust yourself more. You stop expecting certainty and instead aim for integrity, doing your best with the information you have, staying open to feedback, and being willing to adjust when reality gives you new data. This is the heart of mature decision-making. It is not about always being right. It is about showing up fully, thinking clearly, listening to both reason and values, and then taking responsibility for your choices. When you combine this attitude with a calm mind, you become someone who can navigate even difficult situations with steadiness and clarity. In the next section, we will look at how these decision-making tools connect with structured problem solving. You will learn how to break down big, tangled issues into smaller, manageable parts, so that you can move from feeling overwhelmed to having a clear, step-by-step plan of action. As you keep practicing these decision-making tools, another important skill comes into focus: the ability to work with problems in a structured, step-by-step way instead of feeling lost in the middle of them. This is where clear thinking becomes a kind of mental map that guides you from confusion to action. Chapter 5: Structured Problem Solving. A problem is anything that stands between you and a desired result. It might be a practical challenge, like a bottleneck at work, a financial difficulty, or a recurring conflict, or something more internal, like procrastination, low motivation, or self-doubt. Many people experience problems as vague clouds of stress. They feel bad, but they are hard to define, and even harder to solve. Structured problem solving changes that. Instead of treating every difficulty as a messy, overwhelming tangle, you learn to break it down into clear stages. You move from, "this is a disaster, and I don't know what to do," to, "here is the issue, here are the causes, and here are the steps I can take." The first step is to define the problem as precisely as you can. Ask yourself, what exactly is happening that I don't want, or what specific outcome am I not getting? Try to describe the situation in neutral, factual terms, without blame or drama. Instead of saying, "everything is falling apart," you might say, "our team has missed 3 project deadlines in a row," or, "I am spending more money than I earn each month." A clear problem statement is like turning on a light in a dark room. Suddenly you can see what you are dealing with. You know where to focus your attention. The second step is to explore the causes. Problems rarely appear out of nowhere. They are the result of systems, patterns of behavior, habits, incentives, and circumstances that interact over time. Asking why repeatedly can help you uncover these deeper layers. For example, suppose the problem is, we keep missing project deadlines. You might ask, why are we missing deadlines? Because tasks take longer than we expect. Why do they take longer than expected? Because we underestimate the time and don't plan for obstacles. Why do we underestimate? Because we feel pressure to promise fast results. In just a few questions, you have moved from a surface complaint to a more detailed picture of what is going on: unrealistic estimates, lack of buffer time, and pressure to overpromise. These insights point directly toward solutions. It is important not to stop at the first explanation that comes to mind. Often, there are multiple contributing factors. You might be dealing with unclear communication, missing resources, conflicting priorities, or unspoken expectations. You can map out these factors on paper, using simple notes, arrows, or a diagram, to see how they connect. This kind of visual thinking helps you grasp the system behind the problem. Once you have a clearer sense of the causes, you can move to the third step, generating possible solutions. This is where creativity and critical thinking join forces. At first, you focus on possibility, not perfection. Ask yourself, what could we try that might reduce or remove this problem, and write down any ideas that come, even if they seem small or imperfect. If you are solving a problem with others, you can hold a short brainstorming session. Set a simple rule: for the first few minutes, no one judges or criticizes ideas. The goal is to produce as many options as possible. Only after you have a good list do you switch to evaluation. Then comes the fourth step, choosing the most promising solution or combination of solutions. Here is where your decision-making skills return. You can look at each option and ask, how likely is this to address the root causes we identified? What resources, time, money, energy, does it require? What are the potential risks or downsides? Does it align with our values and long-term goals? Often, you will find that no single idea is perfect. That is normal. You might decide to combine 2 or 3 small changes into a coordinated plan. For example, to address missed deadlines, you could introduce more realistic time estimates, add buffer time for unexpected issues, and set up short check-in meetings to catch problems early. The fifth step is implementation. This is where many people get stuck, because they stay in the thinking phase and never move into doing. To avoid that trap, you can turn your chosen solution into a clear action plan. Ask, what exactly needs to be done? Who is responsible for each step? When will each step be started and completed? How will we know if the plan is working? Putting this in writing makes a big difference. A written plan creates accountability and allows everyone involved to see the same picture. Even when you are working alone, writing your plan helps. You stay focused and reduces the chance of forgetting important details. The final step of structured problem solving is review. After you have carried out your plan for a while, step back and evaluate the results. Has the problem improved? Has it changed shape? Have new challenges appeared? Sometimes a solution works perfectly and the problem fades. More often, you see partial progress. Some aspects have improved, while others still need attention. This is not a failure, it is feedback. You can adjust your plan, add new steps, or try a different approach based on what you have learned. In this way, problem solving becomes an ongoing cycle. Define, diagnose, design, act, review, refine. Throughout this process, your calm mindset remains essential. When you are stressed, it is tempting to jump straight from, there is a problem, to, we must act right now, skipping clarity and analysis. Calmness gives you the patience to move through each step without rushing. It allows you to tolerate the discomfort of not having an instant answer while you do the thinking that leads to a better 1. Structured problem solving can be applied at many levels. You can use it for a personal habit, like improving your sleep, exercising consistently, or reducing procrastination. You can use it with your family to handle recurring arguments or logistical challenges. You can use it at work to improve processes, resolve conflicts, or navigate strategic decisions. For example, imagine you struggle with procrastination. Instead of simply telling yourself to try harder, you could define the problem. I often delay starting important tasks until the last minute. Explore causes, fear of failure, unclear next steps, distractions. Low energy at certain times of day. Generate solutions, breaking tasks into smaller pieces, setting a specific start time, removing distractions for short periods. Rewarding yourself for focused work. Choose options, maybe a daily 25-minute focus block with no phone, plus a simple checklist for the first 3 steps of any new task. Implement the plan for a week. Review, notice what improved, what did not, and adjust from there. Each small experiment teaches you something. Over time, the problem becomes less mysterious. You stop seeing it as a fixed part of your identity, I'm just a procrastinator, and start seeing it as a set of patterns you can influence. The same approach works for interpersonal issues. Suppose you and a coworker keep misunderstanding each other. Instead of labeling them as difficult and giving up, you can define, we frequently misinterpret each other's emails and end up frustrated. Explore causes, rushed messages, lack of clarity, different communication styles, unspoken expectations. Generate solutions, setting brief weekly check-ins, agreeing on clearer subject lines, switching to a quick call when a topic is complex. Choose and test 1 or 2 ideas. Review after a few weeks and adjust. When you approach problems in this way, you transform them from threats into projects. They are still challenging, but they are no longer shapeless or overwhelming. You have a method, and that method gives you confidence. In the next chapter, we will explore how critical thinking and calm awareness help you in your relationships, not just in solving problems, but in communicating more clearly, listening more deeply, and building stronger connections with the people around you. 4. Now, remember this, every time you take a problem and walk it through these simple steps, you are training your mind to stay calm, think smart, and act with purpose in difficult situations. Chapter 6, Communicating Under Pressure. So far, we have focused on how calm awareness and clear thinking help you on the inside, managing your emotions, examining your thoughts, and making better decisions. But much of your daily life takes place in conversation with others. How you speak, listen, and respond under pressure has a huge impact on your relationships, your work, and your overall sense of peace. Communication under stress can be tricky. When emotions run high, voices get louder, misunderstandings multiply, and people often say things they later regret. Critical thinking and a calm mindset give you a way to handle these moments differently. Instead of getting swept up in the storm, you can become a steady presence who helps bring clarity and balance to the interaction. The first key is to remember that even in conversation, your internal state comes first. Before you can communicate effectively, you need to know what is happening inside you. When a discussion starts to feel tense, take a quick internal snapshot. What am I feeling right now? Where do I notice that feeling in my body? How is this emotion influencing what I want to say? Simply noticing this can prevent you from speaking on pure reflex. You create a brief pause between feeling and reacting. In that pause, you have the chance to choose a response that matches your values and your goals, rather than one driven only by frustration, fear, or ego. A second key is to separate understanding from agreement. Many people listen mainly to prepare their next response. They are waiting for a chance to argue, defend, or correct. Critical listening is different. It aims first to understand what the other person is actually trying to say, even if you disagree with it. You can practice this by summarizing their point in your own words. and checking if you got it right. For example, "So, if I'm hearing you correctly, you're saying that." Or, "It sounds like you're worried that." This simple habit does not mean you accept their view. It just shows that you are genuinely trying to grasp it before responding. Often, people become less defensive when they feel accurately heard. That alone can lower the emotional temperature of a conversation. Critical thinking also helps you ask better questions. Instead of jumping straight into rebuttal, you might ask, "What makes this so important to you? Can you give me an example of what you mean? What outcome are you hoping for?" These questions uncover the interests, fears, and goals underneath their words. Once those are visible, it becomes much easier to find common ground or at least to disagree respectfully. Another important skill is learning to slow the conversation down. When it begins to escalate, you might notice your heart rate rising, your voice getting sharper, or your thoughts starting to race. In those moments, you can say something like, "I want to keep this conversation useful, but I'm getting a bit worked up. Can we take a short pause and come back to this in a few minutes," or, "This is important, and I'd like to think for a moment before I answer." Some people worry that pausing will make them look weak or unprepared. In reality, it often has the opposite effect. Taking a moment to breathe and think usually leads to responses that are more measured, thoughtful, and effective. Over time, people learn that you are someone who does not react impulsively, but responds with care. Critical thinking also shapes the way you express your own viewpoint. Instead of making sweeping statements like, "You never listen," or "You always do this," you can use more precise, factual language. "When this happened yesterday, I felt ignored," or, "When deadlines change at the last minute without warning, it creates stress for me." Notice the difference. The first style attacks the other person's character. The second describes a specific situation and your reaction to it. This shift often reduces defensiveness and opens the door to problem solving rather than blame. It can help to structure your messages using a simple pattern. Describe the situation or behavior. Share the impact it has on you. Explain what you would like to happen instead. For example, "When meetings start late, I feel rushed and distracted, and it's hard for me to focus. I'd really appreciate it if we could begin as close to the scheduled time as possible." This approach is clear, respectful, and focused on solutions rather than attacks. Listening carefully does not mean accepting abusive or unfair behavior. Calm critical thinking also helps you set boundaries. If a conversation becomes disrespectful, you can calmly say, "I want to talk about this, but not in this tone," or, "I'm willing to continue if we can both stay respectful. If not, I will step away and we can try again later." This kind of boundary is firm but not aggressive. It signals that you are committed to both honesty and basic respect. Another area where calm thinking supports communication is in dealing with criticism. Hearing feedback, especially unexpected or blunt feedback, can sting. Your first impulse may be to defend yourself, argue, or shut down. But if you pause and engage your critical thinking, you can respond more skillfully. One useful strategy is to separate the tone of the message from its content. Even if the other person's delivery is clumsy or overly harsh, there might still be something in what they are saying that you can learn from. You might respond with, "I admit I don't love how you said that, but let me see if I understand the point. Are you saying that?" By doing this, you protect your dignity while also staying open to information that could help you grow. It is also perfectly acceptable to ask for time. If feedback catches you by surprise, you might say, "I appreciate you sharing this. I need a little time to think about what you've said. Can we revisit this tomorrow?" That way, you give yourself space to process the message calmly rather than reacting on impulse. Just as important as receiving feedback is giving it. When you offer criticism, you can use the same principles: be specific, focus on behaviors rather than attacking character, and point toward possible solutions. Instead of, "You're careless," you might say, "I noticed the report had several errors in the data. Next time, could we build in a few extra minutes for double-checking before we send it?" Calm, clear communication is not only useful at work. In close relationships, it can be transformative. With friends, partners, or family members, emotional stakes are often high, and old patterns run deep. It is easy to fall into habits of sarcasm, stonewalling, defensiveness, or bringing up past grievances over and over. Here, too, the skills you are building apply. You can notice your own triggers, slow down, and ask yourself what you truly want from the conversation. Do you want to prove that you are right, or do you want understanding and connection? Do you want to win, or do you want to find a way forward together? Sometimes, simply naming your intention out loud can shift the tone. For example, "This is hard for me to talk about, but I'm bringing it up because I care about our relationship and I want us to handle this better." A statement like that signals that you see the other person as a partner in solving a problem, not as an enemy to defeat. Another helpful practice is to distinguish needs from strategies. A need is something fundamental you are trying to address, like respect, safety, appreciation, autonomy, or connection. A strategy is the specific way you try to meet that need. Conflicts often happen when people argue over strategies without realizing their underlying needs are not as far apart as they seem. For example, one person might insist on strict schedules, while the other prefers flexibility. On the surface, these strategies clash. But underneath, one person may be seeking reliability and order, while the other is seeking freedom and ease. When you talk about those deeper needs, it becomes easier to find creative solutions. Perhaps a shared calendar that keeps key commitments fixed while leaving room for spontaneity elsewhere. Calm critical thinking encourages you to ask, what is this person really needing or protecting right now, and what am I really needing or protecting? These questions shift the focus from blame to understanding. It is worth remembering that you will not communicate perfectly all the time. You will still have moments when you say something sharp, misread someone's tone, or shut down emotionally. The goal is not flawless performance, it is ongoing improvement. When a conversation goes badly, you can still use the skills you are learning. After things have cooled down, you might reflect, what triggered me? Where did I stop listening? What could I do differently next time? If it feels right, you can even return to the other person and say, I've been thinking about our talk earlier. I don't like how I reacted. Can we try again? This kind of repair is powerful. It builds trust and shows that you are serious about growing, not just about being comfortable. Over time, as you combine calm awareness with critical thinking in your communication, people start to experience you differently. They may see you as someone who listens well, expresses yourself clearly, stays grounded under pressure, and is willing to learn. These qualities can strengthen every relationship in your life. In the next chapter, we will turn our attention to the digital world and the constant flow of information that surrounds you. You will learn how to use calm critical thinking to navigate news, social media, and online interactions, so that you can stay informed without becoming overwhelmed, and keep your mind clear in a world that is always on. Chapter 7, Staying Clear in a Noisy World. You live in a time when information is constant. News alerts, messages, emails, videos, comments, and notifications follow you from the moment you wake up until you go to sleep. Your phone, your computer, and even your watch can pull your attention in a dozen directions at once. In this environment, staying calm and thinking clearly is not automatic. It is a skill you must actively protect. The digital world is not good or bad by itself. It offers incredible benefits, instant access to knowledge, the ability to learn almost anything, the chance to connect with people across the globe. But the same systems that inform and connect you are also designed to keep you engaged, often by triggering your emotions, especially curiosity, outrage, and fear. This is why calm critical thinking is so important online. Without it is easy to slip into habits of scrolling without awareness, absorbing half-true stories, and reacting to headlines instead of reality. Over time, this can leave you feeling anxious, angry, or helpless, and less able to focus on what actually matters in your own life. The first step is simply to recognize how digital information affects you. Notice what happens when you scroll through social media or read a string of dramatic news stories. Do you feel more grounded? Or more tense? Do you come away with a clear understanding of what is happening, or just a vague sense of alarm? You might start to pay attention to small signals in your body. Tight shoulders, a clenched jaw, shallow breathing. These are signs that your nervous system is getting activated. When you catch those signals, you can pause for a moment, take a few deeper breaths, and ask yourself, do I want to keep consuming this right now, or is it time to step back? Critical thinking online begins with one simple habit: do not take everything at face value. When you see a dramatic claim, a shocking image, or a confident opinion, pause and ask a few basic questions. Who is saying this? Where did they get this information? What evidence are they offering? Are there other perspectives on this topic? One of the most powerful questions you can ask is, what is the source? A statement on a random post does not have the same weight as information from a reputable organization or an acknowledged expert in the field. That does not mean official sources are perfect, but it does mean they are often more accountable and more likely to correct errors. When a claim has no clear source, or the source seems to exist only to provoke strong reactions, it's a sign to be cautious. Headlines deserve special attention. Many are written to grab you emotionally, not to give a balanced picture. Before you share or react, click through and read more than just the first line. Ask yourself, does the content actually match the headline? You will often find that the reality is more nuanced, less extreme, and sometimes even quite different from what the title suggests. Another challenge of the digital world is the way algorithms shape what you see. Many platforms are designed to show you more content similar to what you already engage with. If you like, share, or comment on certain types of posts, the system will feed you more of the same. Over time, this can create a kind of bubble in which it seems like everyone thinks, feels, and talks the way you do, or, on the other hand, that the other side is always unreasonable or extreme. Calm critical thinking invites you to step outside this bubble on purpose. You can follow a variety of thoughtful sources, not just those that confirm your current views. You can seek out long-form articles, books, or podcasts that present issues in depth, instead of relying only on short clips and fragments. When you encounter a topic that matters, you can make a point of hearing from more than one side before forming a strong opinion. It is also important to recognize how quickly emotions spread online. A single outraged comment can trigger dozens more stories that provoke anger, fear, or disgust, often spread faster than quiet, balanced reporting. When you feel yourself getting caught in a wave of emotional reactions, you can ask, is this helping me understand the situation, or just making me upset? Sometimes the wisest move is simply to close the app, step away, and reconnect with the people and tasks directly in front of you. A useful practice is to create a small internal rule for yourself. When something online makes me feel very reactive, I will pause before I respond. That response might be a comment, a share, a like, or even just a decision to keep reading. In that pause, you can check the facts, consider the source, and decide whether this deserves your time and energy. Another part of staying clear in a noisy world is setting boundaries around your digital use. Your mind needs space to rest, think, and process. If every spare moment is filled with new input, scrolling, watching, refreshing, it becomes harder to hear your own thoughts and feelings. Boundaries do not have to be extreme to be effective. You might decide to keep your phone out of the bedroom at night, or to have certain hours of the day when you do not check social media. You might choose specific times for reading news, instead of consuming it in short bursts all day long. You might turn off non-essential notifications so your attention is not constantly interrupted. These small choices protect your attention. They create pockets of quiet in which your calm and your critical thinking can breathe. Online arguments are another area where your skills make a big difference. It is easy to be drawn into long, heated exchanges that change no one's mind and leave you feeling drained. Before you jump into a comment thread, you can ask yourself, what is my real goal here? Am I trying to understand, to share information, to connect? Or am I just trying to win? Sometimes, sharing a clear, respectful perspective can be valuable. At other times, the most intelligent move is to step away. If a conversation has turned into insults, bad faith, or endless repetition, you have the right to disengage. You do not need to fight every battle you see. Your time and your emotional energy are limited, and critical thinking includes choosing wisely where to invest them. On the positive side, the digital world can also be a powerful support for your growth, if you use it intentionally. You can follow educational channels, join communities focused on learning and support, and use apps that help you practice mindfulness, track habits, or organize your thoughts. You can connect with people who share your commitment to calm, thoughtful living, even if they are far away. The key is to remember that you are not just a passive consumer of content, you are also a creator. Everything you post, share, or comment on contributes to the environment others experience. Before you hit send, you can check in with yourself, is what I'm about to share accurate? Is it kind? Is it useful? You will not always get it exactly right, but asking these questions regularly will raise the quality of your online presence. You can also practice bringing calm into your digital spaces. This might mean responding to a tense comment with a measured, respectful reply, or choosing not to reply at all. It might mean acknowledging when you were mistaken about something you posted and correcting it publicly. These actions build credibility and trust, both with others and with yourself. Remember, the goal is not to withdraw completely from technology or to become suspicious of everything you see. The goal is to stay awake, to bring your calm, your values, and your critical thinking with you whenever you step into the online world. When you do that, you become less reactive, less easily manipulated, and more able to use digital tools in ways that truly serve your life. Over time, as you apply these habits, you may notice real changes. You might feel less overwhelmed by the news cycle, less pulled into unproductive arguments, and more focused on the people and projects that matter most. You might discover that you can be informed without being consumed, connected without being constantly distracted. In the next chapter, we will bring all of these pieces together. You will see how calm awareness, critical thinking, structured problem solving, clear communication, and wise digital habits can be woven into a daily practice, a way of living that helps you stay steady, thoughtful, and purposeful, even when life is difficult or uncertain. Chapter 8, Making It a Way of Life. By now, you have explored many different pieces of the calm, critical thinking mindset. You have learned how to steady your emotions, examine information, make wiser decisions, solve problems systematically, communicate under pressure, and stay clear in a noisy digital world. The next step is to weave these skills into your everyday life so they become more than ideas, they become a way you actually live. It is helpful to think of this as building a personal practice. Just as musicians practice scales, athletes train their bodies, and craftspeople hone their techniques, you are training your mind. The goal is not to use these tools only in rare, dramatic moments, but to integrate them into the rhythms of ordinary days. A good place to start is with small daily anchors, simple, repeatable habits that remind you of the person you are becoming. You do not need a perfect routine, you just need a few steady touch points. One powerful anchor is a short morning check-in. This can take just a few minutes. You might sit quietly and ask yourself, what kind of mindset do I want to bring into today? What situations might challenge my calm or my clarity? How do I intend to respond when those challenges appear? You could write down a single sentence that captures your intention, such as, today I will pause before reacting, or today I will listen fully before I speak, or today I will check the facts before I jump to conclusions. This simple act sets a tone for the day and reminds you that you always have a choice in how you meet whatever comes. Another useful anchor is a brief reflection in the evening. You might ask, where did I stay calm and think clearly today? Where did I react on autopilot? What did I learn from the way I handled things? You do not need to analyze every moment. Pick one or two examples and look at them with curiosity rather than judgment. When you notice a moment where you handled something well, acknowledge it. When you see a moment where you wish you had responded differently, treat it as information, not as evidence that you have failed. Over time, these small reflections become like a daily conversation with yourself. They help you track your progress, reinforce your intentions, and gently correct your course when you drift. It also helps to choose one or two specific skills to focus on at a time, rather than trying to practice everything at once. For a week or two, you might focus mainly on pausing before you respond in tense situations. Once that feels more natural, you might shift your primary focus to questioning assumptions, or to improving how you evaluate information online. This kind of focused practice makes growth more manageable. You are not trying to become a completely different person overnight. You are simply strengthening one part of your mental muscle system at a time. As you build this practice, it is important to remember that growth does not follow a straight line. Some days you will feel strong, clear, and centered. Other days you may feel tired, overwhelmed, or stuck in old patterns. This is normal. Real change happens in waves. Forward steps, pauses, and occasional steps back. On the more difficult days, your calm and your critical thinking might feel far away. You might catch yourself reacting sharply, avoiding difficult tasks, or getting lost in unhelpful thoughts. Instead of deciding that all your progress is gone, you can use those days as an opportunity to practice self-compassion. You might say to yourself, "Today was rough. I didn't handle everything the way I wanted to. But I am still learning. I can look at what happened and try again tomorrow." This attitude keeps you engaged in the process instead of quitting when things don't go perfectly. Your environment also plays a powerful role in whether this way of living takes root. You do not have full control over your circumstances, but you can often adjust them in small, meaningful ways. You might make your physical space a little more supportive of calm and focus, clearing clutter from your desk, setting up a quiet spot for reflection, or turning off unnecessary alerts on your devices. You might place small reminders where you will see them, a phrase on a sticky note, a meaningful object, or a simple word like breathe or pause. Equally important is your social environment. Whenever possible, surround yourself with at least a few people who respect thoughtful conversation, honesty, and growth. These might be friends who are also interested in self-development, colleagues who value reasoned discussion, or online communities centered on learning rather than drama. You can also bring your developing mindset into existing relationships by modeling it. When you stay calm in a tense meeting, ask questions instead of making assumptions, or own your mistakes openly, you quietly encourage others to do the same. You may be surprised at how often people respond positively when someone chooses clarity and respect over reactivity. Another aspect of making this a way of life is understanding your own patterns of strength and vulnerability. Some situations may consistently bring out your best thinking, perhaps when you have time to prepare, when you feel supported, or when the topic is something you care deeply about. Other situations may consistently trigger your worst habits, tight deadlines, criticism, certain personalities, or specific topics that touch old wounds. By noticing these patterns, you can prepare for them. For example, if you know that time pressure tends to make you snap at others, you might build in a short grounding ritual before big deadlines. If you know that certain conversations with family easily slip into old conflict patterns, you might plan ahead about what you will and will not engage in, and how you will protect your calm. You can also use implementation intentions, simple if-then plans that link challenging situations to chosen responses. For instance, if I notice myself getting defensive, then I will take one slow breath and ask a clarifying question. Or, if I feel the urge to check my phone during a conversation, then I will keep it in my pocket and refocus on listening. These small mental commitments turn your values into action. They help you remember your intentions at exactly the moments when you are most likely to forget them. As your practice deepens, you may notice shifts not just in what you do, but in how you see yourself. Instead of thinking, "I am someone who always panics," or "I am someone who is bad at Decisions, you might start to think, I am someone who is learning to stay steady, or, I am someone who is becoming more thoughtful in how I choose. This shift in identity matters. When you see yourself as a learner and a practitioner, you are more likely to keep going when things are hard. You are no longer judging yourself only by individual moments, you are paying attention to the overall direction of your growth. You may also find that your sense of what truly matters begins to clarify as you think more critically about your choices and your environment. You might ask deeper questions. How do I want to use my time and energy? What kinds of work, relationships, and activities are most meaningful to me? Where do I want to be more courageous, more honest, or more kind? Calm critical thinking does not give you ready-made answers to these questions. Instead, it gives you a stable platform from which to explore them. You become less distracted by noise and more able to hear the quiet signals of your own values. This exploration does not need to be grand or dramatic. It can show up in everyday choices, deciding to spend more time on projects that genuinely matter to you, choosing relationships that support your growth, or stepping away from habits that drain your energy without adding real value. As all of these elements come together, emotional steadiness, clear thinking, structured problem solving, skilled communication, healthy digital habits, and daily practice, you begin to experience a different way of moving through life. Challenges still appear. Stressful events still happen. Uncertainty does not disappear. But your relationship to these things changes. Instead of feeling constantly pushed and pulled by circumstances, you feel more grounded. Instead of reacting automatically, you respond with increasing intention. Instead of being overwhelmed by problems, you see more clearly the steps you can take. You will not do this perfectly, and you do not need to. The point is not to become an unshakable machine who never feels upset or makes mistakes. The point is to gradually build a life in which your best self shows up more often, calmer, clearer, kinder, and more aligned with what really matters to you. In the final chapter, we will take a step back and look at the bigger picture of this journey. You will have a chance to reflect on how far you have come, what you want to carry forward, and how to keep growing long after this audiobook ends, so that staying calm and thinking smart becomes a lasting part of who you are. Chapter 9, Your Ongoing Journey. As you reach this final chapter, it is worth pausing to recognize what you have been doing simply by listening and reflecting. You have been training your mind. You have been learning how to stay calm when life feels intense, how to think more clearly when situations are complicated, and how to respond with intention instead of habit. That alone is a meaningful achievement. But this is not the kind of journey that truly ends at the last track of an audiobook. Calm, critical thinking is not a destination you arrive at once and for all. It is a way of traveling through your life, a set of skills and attitudes that you can continue to strengthen for as long as you choose. Take a moment to look back over the main ideas you have explored. You began by seeing how calm and clear thinking support each other. You learned that a steady mind creates the conditions for good judgment, and that careful thinking, in turn, helps you stay steady under pressure. You examined the nature of a calm mindset, the power of mindfulness, and the importance of emotional awareness. You then moved into the heart of critical thinking, learning to separate facts from interpretations, to question assumptions, and to recognize common patterns of faulty reasoning. You saw how these skills can protect you from being misled by others and by your own quick reactions, and how they can guide you toward more grounded, reality-based decisions. From there, you explored practical tools for making better choices. Clarifying the decision in front of you, identifying your real goals, gathering relevant information, considering options, weighing pros and cons, and thinking in terms of both short-term and long-term consequences. You learn to accept uncertainty and to move forward with your best available judgment, rather than waiting for perfect clarity that never comes. You also discovered the power of structured problem solving. Defining issues precisely, looking for root causes, generating solutions, choosing a plan, and reviewing the results. You saw how this approach can be used not only for external challenges, but also for personal habits and recurring patterns in your own life. Then you brought these tools into your relationships. You practiced communicating under pressure, listening more deeply, expressing yourself more clearly, asking thoughtful questions, and setting healthy boundaries. You learned how calm and critical thinking can transform conflict into an opportunity for understanding and, at times, for healing. You turned your attention to the digital world and the non-stop flow of information that surrounds you. You saw how calm critical thinking can help you navigate headlines, social media, and online debates without becoming overwhelmed, misled, or consumed by constant emotional reactivity. You began to see that you can be informed without being dragged into every storm. Finally, you looked at what it means to make all of this a way of life, building daily habits, reflecting on your decisions, approaching growth with patience, and shaping your environment to support the person you want to become. You saw that progress is not linear, that setbacks are part of learning, and that self-compassion is as important as discipline. As you stand here, at the end of this program, you might ask, what am I supposed to do next? The answer does not need to be complicated. You can simply choose one or two practices that resonate most with you and begin applying them more consciously. You might decide to take one calm breath before responding in tense conversations. Question at least one assumption each day, about yourself, about others, or about a situation. Spend a few minutes each evening reflecting on one decision you made and what you learned from it. Pause before sharing dramatic content online and check the source. Use a simple problem-solving process the next time you feel stuck. Small actions like these are not dramatic, but they are powerful. They turn ideas into lived experience. They gradually reshape how you think, how you feel, and how you act. Along the way, it is important to continue treating yourself as a work in progress, not as a finished product. You will still have days when you feel impatient, scattered, or reactive. You will still make choices you later question. Rather than seeing these moments as proof that you have failed, you can see them as part of the training. Every time you notice what happened and gently course correct, you are strengthening your skills. It may also help to remember that you do not walk this path alone. There are many others, in many places, who are quietly working to become more thoughtful, more grounded, and more intentional in how they live. You may know some of them personally. Others you may encounter through books, talks, communities, or the examples they set in your workplace or your family. You can choose to join that wider community in your own way, not by being perfect, but by doing your best to bring a calm, clear, and honest presence to the spaces you inhabit. You can be the person who takes a breath when others rush, who asks a clarifying question when others jump to conclusions, who looks for solutions when others only complain, and who remains open to learning even when it is uncomfortable. Over time, this way of being does more than change your internal experience. It can influence the people around you. A single calm, thoughtful voice in a room full of tension can shift the tone of a meeting. One person willing to listen deeply can change the course of a difficult conversation. One individual who thinks carefully about information and acts with integrity can set a standard that others notice and respect. Of course, you cannot control how others respond. You cannot guarantee outcomes. But you can choose how you show up. And that choice, repeated day after day, is where your real power lies. As this audiobook comes to a close, consider taking a moment to thank yourself for engaging with it. You have invested time and attention in your own growth, and that is something many people never do. Acknowledge that effort. Let it count. Then, gently, turn your attention back to your own life, the decisions waiting for you, the problems you care about solving, the relationships that matter, the work or projects that hold meaning for you. Ask yourself, how can I bring a little more calm and a little more clear thinking into what I'm about to do next? You do not need to wait for a crisis to practice. You can begin with the very next conversation, the very next choice, the very next moment when you feel pulled toward automatic reaction. Those are your training grounds. Those are your opportunities. Staying calm and thinking smart in difficult situations is not about becoming someone else. It is about uncovering and strengthening the best of who you already are, the part of you that can pause, reflect, learn, and choose wisely, even when life is far from easy. As you move forward, may you remember that your mind is not just a mirror reflecting whatever happens around you. It is a tool you can shape and a light you can direct. Use it with care. Use it with courage. And use it in a way that brings you closer to the life you truly want to live.